How's it guys, this is Dayvy FPL and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, it's basically going to be a draft extravaganza for the upcoming double game week 35. We're going to be looking at free hit drafts, we're going to be looking at wildcard drafts, and we're going to be looking at everything in between of those drafts, even covering both of the scenarios currently set out for double game week 35. If you guys aren't using your chip this week, so your non-hitters, your no free hitters, your no wildcarders, this video could still be helpful for you as you can kind of analyze the drafts and select players that you want to target with those free transfers to hopefully bridge the gap between the chip users and the non-hitters. So that's something you're interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So as I mentioned, there are currently two scenarios set up for double game week 35, and thanks to our friend Ben Krellin over on Twitter, he's kind of painted these two scenarios out for us. So on the left hand side, we have the Liverpool double game week happening in game week 35, and then on the right hand side, we have if the Liverpool double game week will happen in game week 36. So not much difference between these two, it's basically only that Liverpool double game week that's kind of affecting our decision planning. There is still the West Bromwich Albion double game week that could happen, but I don't think there's too many of us considering West Bromwich Albion assets, so I'm not going to focus on them too much. So as I mentioned, just whether the Liverpool double game week will happen in game week 35 or 36, and that's why on the wildcard I will only be considering one scenario or making one draft for that. But then obviously with the free hit, that's going to change a lot, whether we do go for those Liverpool assets, whether we go for the triple up or the double up, or whether we completely negate them is going to be heavily dependent on that whole Liverpool double game week scenario. So I will be covering two drafts for those of you guys so that you manage to get the most out of whatever the decision is. And that's the thing, the decision hasn't been confirmed yet. At least as I'm recording this video, it has not been confirmed yet, and there's a lot of speculation about when it's going to be confirmed, hopefully before that game week 35 deadline on Friday evening. A little bit of a reminder there of the Friday evening deadline so you guys don't miss out on that deadline and don't change your squads. But there's also kind of a rumor that they'll only announce the fixture closer to the fixture's time, because obviously it was postponed due to protesters, so they don't want to kind of give the protesters the time early on in the week so that plans can be made for a potential upcoming protest. So that's just kind of the thinking behind it, but as you know, there's two scenarios. That's all you guys have to pay attention to, and I will update you guys on my own Twitter at DayvyFPL whenever the news does come about. But you have to worry too much, just sit back and let's get into the wildcard draft. So before we get onto the drafts, a little bit of admin here as we usually do. This is my current selling value, so not exactly team value, but I personally think that selling value tells you a lot more and gives you a more realistic expectation of if you guys can afford this draft. So this is what happens when I delete every single player from my lineup, I take them out, transfer them out, and I'm left with 101.9 million in the bank. So not the best team value / selling value in the world, but I think this season our selling value has been quite low, and throughout the season we've managed to pick it up, but not to the amount that I think would be quite satisfactory. So obviously if you guys do have more money, you can simply just do some upgrades on the drafts that I'm going to be presenting. Generally in FPL, the more expensive players return more points, so you guys can take those upgrades as you do please, and you probably should be doing quite well. That's the thing with the wildcard and the free hit, the more money you have, the better it is. I've seen some drafts in the past when I've used my own wildcard on my free hit that I'm really jealous of, and I think, how do these managers afford these players? But that just simply is because they have a better team value / selling value. So I just wanted to give you guys an indication of what I'm currently dealing with. If you guys can't afford the drafts, just do some downgrades, but I just wanted to avoid those comments down below where they say, Davey, I can't afford this draft, what should I do? You've made an incorrect draft here because I can't afford it. That's just simply because we all have different team values. But now let's get on and look at the planning. So as I mentioned, firstly, I'm going to be talking about a wildcard draft, and I'm only going to be covering one scenario because in my opinion, it doesn't matter if the Liverpool double game week is in game week 35 or 36, you're definitely going to want some Liverpool options because they do definitely have an upcoming double. It will definitely be more to your advantage as a wildcarder if it does happen in game week 35, because that double game week looks absolutely sensational. I mean, just look at that. Southampton, West Bromwich Albion, great double game week there. If it does move to game week 36, it changes to United, West Bromwich Albion, which isn't the worst in the world, but it's kind of similar to the game week 35 scenario with the majority of teams. They have one really good fixture, but then one bad fixture. So it's quite hard to kind of predict how the team's going to do. But in terms of the wild card, you guys have to look ahead, not only at the double game week. Please don't get blinded. And that's how I wanted to give you the whole schedule here from now to the end of the season, because that blank game week 36 is just on the horizon, and you guys definitely want to get a full starting 11 so that you can kind of maximize your potential potential scoring and your potential rank boost in the upcoming game week. So game week 35, focus on it, get a good starting 11 there, but game week 36, just make sure you have enough players to get a full starting 11. I also have highlighted some teams here in game week 37 and 38 that I think could provide some good points. If you look at the bottom of your screen there, the two teams that I've highlighted that actually have a single game week in game week 35 are going to be Spurs and West Ham. That's just because they play every single game week, have some good fixtures from now to the end of the season. So those are kind of teams that you guys can look at if you want some cheap enablers or maybe some bench options that if they do come on, they can still get you some points. But you're probably going to be focusing on those double game week sides, which is why I've highlighted Everton, Man United, Southampton, and Liverpool. So Southampton, I've gone for them because they have some nice fixtures after that double, and they also have a really nice fixture in blank game week 36 against Fulham. But I think you're probably going to not go for a triple up or a double up on them because they haven't been that great this season. So Everton, I've gone for them because of that lovely blank game week 36 fixture against Sheffield United, and on paper, that's probably the best fixture that you guys can have for your sides in FPL at the moment. Sheffield United relegated already. I don't know how much they have to play for there, maybe for some pride, but I do think that Everton should be on the receiving end of some FPL points from an attacking and a defensive point of view. So I definitely would look at that Everton team if you are looking at maybe some options in the attacking or the defensive departments. But then the other teams, United, Liverpool. Now, while these two teams do play each other in game week 36, that is confirmed. That's definitely going to be going ahead. I just kind of don't know what that game's going to entail. I mean, it could be a really boring 0-0. I mean, if you look at United's games against the inverted commas top 6 sides this season, most of them have ended in 0-0 draws. So we might not see many goals in that, but I guess from a defensive point of view, you guys could still be happy with that if you own Trent Alexander-Arnold, if you own Luke Shaw, those type of players. But I think from the attacking point of view, it might be quite a low scoring affair. But I still would favor these two teams because after that blank in game week 37 and 38, they have some really nice fixtures. So I definitely would look at these two sides still kind of competing for top 4, though I think United have less pressure there. Liverpool definitely have the most pressure to kind of secure that top 4 space. So I reckon that starting 11 is going to be absolutely packed from a Liverpool lineup point of view. So you guys don't have to worry about too much rotation there. But this is what you kind of have to do with the wildcard. Maybe pause the video right now. You maybe think that I'm crazy. You would definitely go for a Crystal Palace option because they have a great double game week. But then after that, the fixtures aren't that good. So that's what I'm kind of saying to you guys here. And that's why I've highlighted these selected teams because I think from now to the end of the season, they have some really nice fixtures that you guys can take advantage on. The one thing I wanted to kind of note that if you guys are going to be using a wildcard, what I would kind of do is have a full stacked 11 for game week 36, and then you can chop and change it to bring in a differential. And the one fixture that highlights to me or jumps out to me when I look at these fixtures is going to be Man City versus Newcastle in blank game week 36. I mean, they've had their rest from the Champions League semi-finals there, so I reckon a De Bruyne, a Mahrez will definitely be starting one of these fixtures. So I mean, a Man City versus Newcastle, that just screams goals to me from a Man City point of view. So you guys can, if you are wildcarding, manage to bring in a little bit of a differential there from a Man City point of view in blank game week 36. So that's just one of the tips that I would do if I was wildcarding. Obviously, I'm not, but I would really like to bring in a Man City option as a little bit more of a differential from then to the end of the season. But now let's get on and look at the actual draft. So I'll be going over every single position and kind of talking to you guys why I selected this specific player and maybe alternatives that you guys can consider. Starting off in goal, the second goalie position is going to be Forster, kind of a no-brainer in my opinion at 4.0. Then the second option is going to be Fabianski, and that's kind of the reason I've included Fabianski in here. As if you guys do recall, West Ham have great fixtures from now to the end of the season. Don't have a double game week, but that's not the end of the world in terms of the fixtures after that, because I think that Fabianski is going to be reliable for a clean sheet in a couple of those games. But the thing about Forster is that the Southampton manager came out in his press conference this week and he basically confirmed that Forster would be starting the next 2 games. Now, while you might take this with a pinch of salt, he might have been bending the truth a little bit on that, but he did say that Forster will be starting the next 2 games. And if you kind of look at the fixtures, that's going to be in that double game week. So I know the double game week for Southampton isn't the best in the world. I think they face Liverpool, and if I'm wrong, it's probably Crystal Palace. So you guys could consider that. I mean, at 4.0, not the biggest risk in the world in terms of that goalie position. And I do think he could get a couple of save points or maybe a clean sheet even in the upcoming double. So that's the nice thing. Play Forster in the double game week, but then when he is benched for McCarthy, Fabianski can just come in there and hopefully get you a couple of clean sheets. In the defense, I've gone quite budget, to be honest. I've gone for Holding, Ward, and Phillips as kind of budget enablers here. Now, Ward should be starting both of those double game week fixtures because Nathaniel Klein has just come back from injury. So I am kind of confident on Ward starting both those fixtures. And as you know, those Crystal Palace fixtures are absolutely great in double game week 35. So I think that you can definitely start him here. I would also start Lucas Digne and then also go for Shaw because those two players obviously also have a double. Phillips will be back for Southampton as he was in the starting 11 against United United, even though that game was postponed. But I don't think I'll be starting Phillips or Holding, even though Holding does have a double game week. With David Luiz kind of back from injury, he did get injured in game week 34, but I think that he might be back according to Arteta for the upcoming game weeks. But you can simply just monitor the situation in the Europa League there with Arsenal because they are playing on Thursday evening. But my back three would definitely be Shaw, Digne and Ward going into double game week 35. The midfield department has some variation here. We've brought in some differentials in terms of Wilfried Zaha and Ward-Prowse. Wilfried Zaha, kind of a no-brainer if you're going to be wildcarding. The only thing about him is that he currently does have a little bit of a knock there, a little bit of an injury scare, so just monitor the situation with his press conferences, and hopefully Roy Hodgson comes out and says that Wilfried Zaha is going to be back for double game week 35, and then I definitely think he would be one of my locked-in transfers if you guys are using a wildcard or even your free hit. The rest of the team also gone for Ward-Prowse from a little bit of a differential point of view. Spoke about Southampton, have some nice fixtures from now to the end of the season, so you could consider the midfielder from Southampton to be a good option. I mean, he is on pens if Danny Ings isn't on the field, so I think that he could be nice. And then also I've gone for kind of the double up with Jota and Salah. I've gone for Jota, which might be a little bit controversial because he is a rotation risk, but I think at 6.8 million, not that much risk in terms of the price there. And if he does usually play, if he comes off the bench, he does sometimes get a couple points. So that's why I think Jota should be in your side. And then also Salah, just because of that double game week coming up, I think that he definitely will be playing the majority of minutes from now to the end of the season because he is still chasing that golden boot from Harry Kane. So I think that the Egyptian winger should be in most starting 11s for Liverpool from now to the end of the season. Then in terms of the last midfielder, we've gone for Fernandes just because such a consistent option. Just monitor the situation with the Europa League as well. I'm expecting him to get some rest, but if he's not rested, he could potentially be rested in one of the upcoming double game week fixtures, but I don't think there's too much risk in there. And I mean, Fernandes, I'm expecting him to get back to some scoring and assisting run here because his season has just been so good, and I think he's just such a quality player. In the front line, we've gone for a little bit of a combination here of three sides. I have included Harry Kane just because of the Spurs fixtures. He is also chasing the golden boot, and I mean, a hungry golden boot Harry Kane is quite a force to be reckoned with, so I do think he'll be getting a couple goals from now to the end of the season, and that's why I've gone for a Spurs option still here if I was to wildcard. But then Iheanacho, kind of a no-brainer there, has an upcoming double game week, is in great form, so definitely would be looking at him. And then finally DCL, spoke about those lovely Everton fixtures, and at least you're kind of securing that blank game week 36 fixture with the Everton striker. Got a goal in game week 34, so hopefully that kind of boosts him and puts him on a goal scoring run in the last couple game weeks of the season. But this is the wildcard draft. Post your guys' drafts down below. I'm always kind of interested to see what decisions you guys do make, and comment down below if you think this draft is absolutely terrible and what changes you would make to it. So now going on to the free hit planning, and I've got the fixtures here for the potential Liverpool double game week. For the other scenario where Liverpool don't have a game week, just simply ignore Liverpool. I don't know how many Liverpool options I would be going for if they just have that Southampton fixtures, but that's something that you guys do have to kind of contemplate on a free hit if you think that a single game week player could potentially outscore a double game week player. But the fixtures, if Liverpool do have a double game week, obviously it's a no-brainer. Southampton, West Bromwich Albion, great fixtures there. Probably could be argued that that's the best double game week out of any side, so I would be looking at them if they do have the double. But then other teams with great fixtures, Crystal Palace, Sheffield United, Southampton, both away games, but I don't think with the fans not in the stadiums is going to affect them too much, and I think that I would potentially be taking a punt on maybe even a Crystal Palace triple up. But then obviously the next two teams, United, Leicester, these two sides do play each other, but it's those other fixtures that I am kind of looking at. Aston Villa away for United, and then also Newcastle at home for Leicester. Two games that I think you guys should be targeting if you're going to be using a free hit. The rest of the fixtures are a little bit hit or miss. I mean, Everton have two average fixtures that might equal one good fixture, and then the rest of the teams kind of have a bad fixture and a great fixture. So you have Crystal Palace for Southampton, you have Arsenal against West Bromwich Albion, and then you obviously have Chelsea who face Man City and Arsenal that you guys can kind of argue, and it kind of all depends on what side from Man City and Arsenal pitches up on the day and faces Chelsea. But these are the options that I would consider, and maybe just look at the double game week sides if you are free hitting, and go for some differentials, as I think this is definitely the time to go for it as we are kind of heading towards the end of this FPL season. So going on to the first draft, and this is kind of the scenario if Liverpool do have the double game week. Kind of just skip ahead if the news does come out that the double game week is going to be in game week 36, but in terms of if the double does happen in double game week 35, I 100% would be opting for a triple up in that Liverpool team. So the thing that you guys can kind of contemplate is whether to go for two defenders or two attackers. I don't think I would be going for Mane, Salah, Jota. I definitely will be having a defender because a Liverpool defender is basically an attacker. I mean, they get so many assists. I know this season might not be the case, but they definitely still have that high ceiling, high potential to get an attacking return. And that's why I've kind of gone for the double up in defense. I've gone for Alexander-Arnold, I've gone for Robertson, and my main reason behind this is that if you monitor that Liverpool attack, recently the attack hasn't been that good. I mean, the defense hasn't been much better, but the thing you must note is that in the United lineup, Nat Phillips was back in the lineup, and that Kabak-Phillips relationship, that centre-back pairing, has been quite a successful one, and that also moves Fabinho into midfield. And Fabinho in midfield, I definitely think helps out that Liverpool side from an attacking and a defensive point of view. They just simply look better when Fabinho is in that midfield slot. So I've gone for Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, because I think I trust maybe the defense a little bit more than the attack, and I think that these two players might get a couple returns from a defensive and attacking return. Apologies, I should have actually mentioned this before I covered the draft and the players, but this formation is actually going to be a 4-4-2. So a little bit of a weird formation there, not one that you see too often in FPL. The more conventional 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 is usually what people go for, but I think this 4-4-2 has the potential, and that's just because you look at the other defenders. It's Lucas Digne, it's Luke Shaw, great fixtures there for Everton and Man United from a defensive point of view as well. So maybe not from an attacking point of view too much, but I think in terms of those defenses, they could definitely be getting a couple of clean sheets there. And the nice thing about owning fullbacks is they still do offer that attacking threat. So you can see there, 4 fullbacks in my lineup, but I think these players could provide some good points. In the goalkeeper position, I've gone for Forster, no brainer there, already spoke about him with the wildcard, but then I've also gone for Guaita, just to kind of take advantage of those Crystal Palace fixtures. And the thing about Guaita is that he should be nailed in that Crystal Palace lineup, maybe a little bit more nailed than Ward, but I don't really know the current situation with that whole goalkeeper situation at Crystal Palace, but I definitely think those Crystal Palace defensive fixtures could provide some nice points. Going into the midfield, I've still gone for Zaha and Ward-Prowse, but I think it's kind of similar because all of these sides have good fixtures, and I can see a couple of points scored from now to the end of the season for kind of all of these sides. So Salah, Zaha, Ward-Prowse, and Fernandes, I think that should be quite a comfortable midfield. You guys can do your upgrades as you do, please. Maybe you want to kind of go for a double up in that Crystal Palace attack, and then you can kind of change Ward-Prowse to Eze, but I don't know how much faith I'd be putting in that Crystal Palace attack, if I'm honest, because I don't think they've been that great this season. So I think one attacker in terms of Zaha is perfectly fine. The rest of the lineup in that forward department, obviously Callum Robinson isn't going to be starting. I've simply just got him on the bench here, and if West Brom do have that double game week, he could maybe come off the bench and get you a couple points, but the main striking pair is going to be Vardy and Iheanacho. You might be asking, why haven't I gone for Dominic Calvert-Lewin? But I just think with those Leicester fixtures in the double, I think they're slightly better than those Everton fixtures. I mean, if you look at those Everton fixtures, probably two defensive sides, and that's why I kind of favor the Everton defense over the Everton attack. And I think that Vardy and Iheanacho, that kind of combination, hopefully will kick off against Newcastle. Kind of banking on that Newcastle fixture because they do face United next, and that game could be quite cagey. But Vardy does love a goal against the top 6 opposition, so just keep your eyes on that one if you guys do want to go for it. But there are changes that you guys can make. I know this might be a little bit more differential here. I haven't gone for a Spurs option. We'll talk about that in the next draft. But I think if you're going to be using your free at this stage of the season, go for a couple of differential options, as I don't think the risk is that much in double game week 35. Now moving on to the next draft, and I kind of will only be talking about the changes that I do make to this lineup. We've gone for a more conventional 3-4-3 here. Sees the return of Harry Kane to the lineup. Still managed to keep Vardy and Iheanacho as well. And the thing about going with Harry Kane, as I mentioned him in the wildcard draft, Harry Kane is still chasing that golden boot, and we saw how Spurs kicked off against Sheffield United, and against Leeds, I think it might be more of a cagey affair, but I definitely think that Harry Kane has the potential to do quite well. And the thing that I wanted to kind of spice up here is that I've dropped the Liverpool defenders, and I've also dropped Mo Salah, and that's allowed me to afford Harry Kane. So just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an interesting draft, just to show you what you guys can do if you don't go with the Egyptian winger from Liverpool, and maybe afford a Harry Kane, and hopefully he bangs against Leeds, and then you'll be smiling. The thing that you also could do is maybe upgrade Smith Rowe, downgrade Harry Kane if you think that Heung-min Son or Gareth Bale's a better option. The one thing to kind of think about is that Leeds aren't as open at the back as previous games. When they face these stronger oppositions, they tend to kind of park a little bit more, not that open at the back, and I think that that's why Harry Kane might be more favorable to a Heung-min Son or Gareth Bale, because I don't think the chances in behind are going to be as frequent, and that's why I've gone for Harry Kane over Heung-min Son. But you guys could maybe have a different opinion, and then you can simply just go for the South Korean or the Welshman and just upgrade Smith Rowe to wherever you want. But starting off in the defense, I've gone for Guaita and Forster. Again, not going to talk about them, but I have introduced Castagne instead of going for one of Robertson or Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I just think because of that Leicester double game week against Newcastle, he just gets forward so often. I think it's on that left flank or the right flank. I always get confused because I think now he's started on the other side and he's doing a lot better. So Castagne offers you both that attacking and that defensive threat. And as you can see, yet again, I've gone for 3 fullbacks in my defense. The midfield hasn't changed much, except I've gone for Mo Salah out and Aubameyang in. The only thing about Aubameyang that you guys might find a little bit annoying is that it seems like Lacazette is back in training. So that kind of means that there's less of a chance of Aubameyang starting at that center forward position, and I always prefer Aubameyang at the 9. I just think out wide he might be a little bit ineffective, whereas at that 9 position he usually provides quite a lot of points. So that's kind of the only thing to monitor. But as you know, Europa League on Thursday night, just maybe see if Lacazette's back in the lineup, on the bench, what's kind of the fitness situation with him. I just think a little bit of a nice differential there. Has that West Bromwich Albion game where I think Arsenal should do quite well, and I'm kind of banking on Arsenal doing well from a differential point of view if you guys are going to be using a free hit. The rest of the side is kind of standard. Phillips just comes in here as a cheap Liverpool option at 4 million, should be playing every single minute, so you guys can play him if you guys do want to, and then obviously Ward's going to be on your bench. You could kind of combine him with Guaita if you guys do want to, but I just don't know if I trust that Crystal Palace defense as much as going for a double up in that defense. So this is basically wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow for the team selection, where hopefully we get some news about this Liverpool double game week in game week 35 or 36. And also, as I said, comment down your guys' free hit drafts, your wildcard drafts. Always interests me to see what you guys are kind of going for, and put your critiques in my wildcard drafts and tell me what you guys think about them. But I'll be checking you guys. I'm going to be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.